It's rare to see somebody making sense online and having a little bit of traction these days. It's terribly rare. With that being said, he's not going to tell you that the American flag has anything to do with the District of Columbia. He's not going to tell you that it's the wartime flag. He's not going to tell you shit that fucking matters. He's going to drag it through the mud. And I could be wrong. It might simply be because he attributed, and I might be wrong. This is me superficially judging the fact that he has more melanin in his skin than I do. So perhaps he's attributing the American flag to a bunch of white guys, which you do hear come up. I don't know if that's really what he's getting at, but he doesn't state it either. The other bit he's going to talk about is the alphabet kids, the LGBT fucking whatever. Um, he also does not tell you to look into organizations, and the big one is the Tavistock Institute. He doesn't tell you to do that. And you should. Everybody should be talking about this. They should be concerned with this, and they should be putting an end to this. But they're not, because they don't know where to begin. This really lends itself to when I complain about things on the internet, I have somebody say, well, what the fuck should we do? And if I spell out, 4 or 5 crude steps, they're like, but then what should we do? Because they're just stupid. They will repeat anything, and that's what you see on the internet. That's what our masters have shit out, and it's ironic based on what this guy's going to tell you. Here we go. Maximum volume. And I don't know who this is. I'll have to look into it. Maybe it says it on here. There's a lot of stuff on here, but we'll see. Speaker, Marquette Devon Burden. And I don't think I've ever seen him online before. I don't know who this guy is. So here we go.
You see LGBTQ flags, flying next to the American flag, which is an abomination. You see it in classrooms. They actually teach children this curriculum. And why do they have to do that? They're not producers. They're recruiters. You and I, we can produce kids. Forward our values and our DNA.
Recruiters.
They're recruiters.
Because they can't
They can't have kids. Yeah, they got to recruit kids.
Oh.
They go adopt them, brainwash them. They go into the schools as teachers, brainwash them. And that's why a kid grows up and they think this stuff makes sense. Why do they? Because we believe all the stories we hear, especially when we're young. For example, when you're young, you learn 1 + 1 = 2. Could I ever convince you that's not true?
Yeah, you can't.
I cannot. You learn that as a definition. Similarly, if I taught you when you were a child, at the same time I taught you 1 + 1 = 2, I taught you that you can have 2 mommies. Or you could have a daddy who dresses as a woman. And, if I teach you those things early on, I implant it in your mind, it's going to be nearly impossible to get it out. You see,
we have dark times ahead right now. As is, the kids who are adults right now, most of them have bought into this. An overwhelming majority of people have bought into this horse shit. So when you think about the up-and-coming kids, very few people think for themselves in general. Most of these kids are going to be hopelessly fucking lost, which means they are the angry villagers at the door. They are the agents, in the Matrix, so to speak. With that in mind, I'm not promoting simulation theory, and I'm not promoting the multiverse of fucking horse shit. All of that's in place to pave the way for a one-world religion. But I do use the Matrix as an example often, because there's a lot of lesser magic in there where our masters were telling us things and laughing at us, one of which is all the idiots online promoting these narratives, these bullshit narratives, echoing the message, as some people have taken to referring to it. They work as agents, so to speak. Anybody can be an agent. That's what you were told in the 1999 film, because if you're not thinking for yourself, you do effectively work for our masters, whether you get paid for it or not. And most people haven't considered that, and you sure as shit don't hear that come up. Now, this guy also mentioned 1 + 1, = 2, and how it's infallible and all this other stuff. But there's, ironically, an agenda afoot right now, and I've seen it crop up in 2 different places. Pseudo-intellectuals who buy into gematria, numerology, and paradigms and horse shit, and in the alphabet or LGBT community. They're both echoing the same message, but neither of these 2 groups have figured out that it's popped up in 2 different places for a reason. To maximize how many fucking retards they rope in. I shit you not. Know your target audience, and that's what they're doing. That's what our masters are doing. When I say masters, crudely speaking, I'm talking about trilateral city-state horse shit. I'm talking about the small percentage of people who organize that to begin with and are behind the scenes. And that's going to go over a lot of people's heads and probably sound a little too wishy-washy for most, and that's fine. Because most of you are probably fucking stupid. So I don't fucking care. And I don't feel like putting in the time and energy, quite literally holding your hand and spoon feeding you all this shit, because I'm already doing what I'm doing, and there's a lot of stuff I've left online, and you could take the time to go through that, but you probably won't. You probably won't. So here's this. Terrence Howard, 1 times 1 doesn't equal 1. Look at that. Google gives you a top fucking result for this. You can plug in things all goddamn day, and you'll get a bunch of tennis shoes, you'll get video games, you'll get designer dresses, you'll get superficial shit instead of what you're looking for. I wasn't sure if this would happen, but this brought up a top result, bolded this shit front and center, because this is an agenda. It speaks to what I'm getting at. Now, keep in mind, if you mix up the keywords, and sometimes you can use the same keywords on Google and it will give you different results. And sometimes it will be conflicting results. Just to throw you a bone, if you start asking Google, which way does Venus turn? It will sometimes tell you clockwise, sometimes it will tell you anti-clockwise. If you start asking Google, which way does the zodiac move? Same difference. It will tell you both, depending on where you're at, because it's drawing all sorts of fucking bullshit, and it's in place to mislead you now. You and I both. And most people haven't figured that out. That's another thing that's not coming up, because Google is no longer a tool of fucking, it's not a browser. It's not a tool or a resource at our disposal. It's a tool of propaganda, as it was always meant to be. And the same applies to what I'm using right now, the Wi-Fi, the internet. It's the DARPA internet. It's always been intended to be the DARPA internet, and it's always, the goal has been to lock it down. And that's what we see right now. All the censorship campaigns, none of that would exist. And if you and I were surrounded by well-meaning people who were smart, none of that would have ever had any traction. People would have freaked the fuck out. But they've been lulled into a daydream with all their entertainment on all of their free social engineering platforms, shitting out the latest content at all hours of the fucking day. By design, not by coincidence. And you don't hear people talking about it. Not in the light that I just cast it in. To throw you another example, in case this is your first time hanging out with me, and or if you're just painfully fucking stupid. When I scroll down on most social engineering platforms, you're gonna feel lag. It's gonna pull now. If I do this, usually I'll hit the bottom of the stack. That's not the end of the internet, and there's no reason that should have stopped, and there's no reason I should have to jump through another hoop and click on a button to see more results. Unless our masters are dumbing people down, doing away with attention spans, quite literally eroding any ability to think critically. This is what you see. If I am on YouTube or Instagram and I step away from what I'm doing, say I'm scrolling for a bit, and I step away, I look away, there's a distraction, it will fucking drag me back to the top of the stack, because that's where you get the propaganda. That's where you get the superficial spoon-fed shit in your feed. It's amazing, but you do not hear people talking about this, because most people don't have eyes to see, and this is superficial shit to me. This is social engineering. And this is directly related to what I started this off with, the Tavistock Institute. And it is intimately connected with an agenda known as eugenics, which is alive and fucking well. And why do you think the alphabet community exists in the first place? And most of you probably can't answer that question. Why do you think that IQ test was conducted back in 2020 to present day? Why do you think that agenda is still enduring? Why do you think something happened back in 2001 on this day? Something that symbolically, I have never met anybody who understands. It's been a long time and nobody fucking gets why that took place. It's ironic. All right, what the fuck do I know? I was about to sign out, but then I saw this fat-headed kid, and I really don't like him. I still don't like him. He was all over TikTok because TikTok promotes propaganda. So at the top you see, proof Elvis was a reptilian. What he's talking about is Elvis was Jewish. That's essentially what this translates to, without the adult fairy tales and the misleading propaganda. And I think, let's see if it clipped it again.
Be normal up to this point. You'll see some pictures here in a moment, but then about here, things get a little strange.
No way.
So now we're going to go through a series of pictures where you see the little girl have a range of emotions, and then right about here, she sees something wrong as he pulls away. Scared. What does she see?
Jewish Elvis.
We're about to see it for ourselves as he stands up and looks at the camera.
A bad dye job.
He looks very weird. Somehow the guy holding the microphone misses this part. But here, very soon, he's going to notice something that is amiss. I think that'll be right about here. And he looks a little...
He's obviously a lizard person.
And he looks a little disturbed. After seeing this, he quickly walks away. And then acts like nothing ever happened. Look at his face. Yikes. Elvis was not human. Elvis's men seeing everything as it happens. One of them steps in front of the camera. The other man goes directly for the eye that was just melting. Here we go again, in real time. What?
Before we do that, do any of you shoot photography? Everybody carries around a fucking phone now, and I realize things are digital. But depending on the light source and how fast the subject is moving or you're moving the fucking camera, things do happen. They do happen. It alters what you capture. Same applies to video, for fuck's sake.
See Elvis's guy step in front of the camera right here. Then the other guy goes right for the eye. Prove Elvis was a reptilian.
I hate garbage like this on the internet. It's noise. It's in place to act as a distraction campaign, and most people are too stupid to fucking realize that. Case in point, 4,000 people clicked like on here. Look at all these brilliant souls. Talking about clones and all sorts of dumb fucking shit. Dumb fucking shit we have no proof of. And if you ask some of them, was Elvis Jewish? Most of them probably wouldn't know that. Most of them probably don't know that he had a twin at birth. Most of them don't know that he was fucking blonde. Here's another distraction campaign. Pastor Bob Joyce. And I can't remember if this is the one. I mean, you hear a lot of ridiculous shit. You'll hear Jimi Hendrix's, Morgan Freeman, and somebody posted Elvis, and they said Elvis is Donald Trump. It's a fad, and it's ridiculous. It might be Pastor Bob. I can't remember. Look up when these people are born and try to match the ages. That's one way you can reason this shit out, because people are fucking stupid. What was the other thing? Having to do with the Mandela effect, you'll see a lot of kids post, it's a funny or die video. Here, let me just show you real fast. It's one way you can just throw some of that shit out the fucking door. Sinbad, funny or die, April Fool's Day video. This shit. And it's mocking the Mandela effect, mind you. But there are kids on TikTok who have posted clips of this because somebody truncated the video. They cut out the shit where you understand what it's in reference to, and this is how our masters are getting people today too. That's why why people are being conditioned to digest the latest content, but only 60 seconds and totally out of fucking context. This is why you don't have. This is why people won't fucking read a paragraph. This is why people can't sit through a 2-hour movie. This is why people can't read a fucking book. It's because our masters are doing away with attention spans and critical thinking skills. It's fucking insane, but that's why that agenda is afoot. And it's intimately related to the Tavistock Institute having to do with social engineering. But that doesn't come up. So you got kids on TikTok and other social engineering platforms people call social media, and they'll post clips from this satire. And they'll claim that that was an authentic clip from this movie. And it's not. Sinbad came back and mocked it. If you watch it, they make numerous references to other Mandela effects, which is just so on the nose, it's hokey. It's tacky. It's obvious, but literal humor has ruined the children across the internet. Sometimes I'll be snarky. Somebody was trying to find fucking porn online. What was it? Some gal popped up on Instagram and everybody was trying to figure out what her handle is, what her, moniker or digital handle is, so they could try to see if she had an OnlyFans. And one of the kids asked, "Where is it?" So I told him, "On the internet." And he proceeded to have a conversation with me because he didn't understand that I was attempting to kick his dick in the dirt and tell him that he's a fucking retard. But he is a retard, so he didn't realize that. And it took quite a while until I had to spell it out because I repeated myself. It's on the internet. Because you can use the internet as a tool, and there's a lot of tools available through the internet still where you could reason that out and probably find out if she did have an OnlyFans. But he was lazy and stupid and a retard. So eventually I spelled it out, and that's where it ended because that was the punctuation. I told him I was done with him because he was a fucking retard. It's insane. Now, since I was bashing Mandela effect stuff, if I'm not mistaken, most of that's in place to trip people up. It's also in place to pave the way for a one world religion. There are discrepancies. There are clear and present discrepancies having to do with what some people, think in terms of history or time, as well as pop culture. Interview with the vampire, interview with a vampire. I had a poster. The poster is no longer what it used to be. It's different. And things like that do exist. But there are old realm residue as well. Here's one I'll just throw out before. Whoops. Here, let me do it this way. Revenge of the Nerds credits Queen song. If you watch this movie, it's not Queen singing this song, but it is a cover band singing We Are the Champions, and they do sing it correctly, even though most recordings no longer cap out the way people remembered. Another example is look up the original Queen concerts, which is what I did, and I went through them, and you'll still hear the actual song, what it used to be. It's insane. There's a lot of old realm residue, but there's also a lot of bullshit. And it's because I keep stressing there's a lot of muddy propaganda mixed in with what people are talking about. And if you're not thinking for yourself, you're not going to challenge yourself or that shit, which means you're just going to probably stir the pot of shit or repeat that shit. You're going to click repost instead of researching, instead of thinking for yourself. It's insane. But that's why we were given all these forms of communication to expedite this process of inundating, quite literally training people. This is what is it? Indoctrination? Yeah. It's essentially another form of indoctrination. Usually I'll think of public school that way, but that is what the internet has become, and that's why we have social media. That's another point that you'll never hear come up because people are fucking stupid. We would be better off if they weren't, because most people out there, in their core, they're a good person, which means they're gullible. But gullible people tend to look and act and behave, like a bunch of fucking stupid ass, fill in the blank. You have to really buckle down and try to change these things. You got to try to figure shit out on your own. And if nobody's challenging you, that's not going to happen. So we don't have checks and balances anymore, and that's another thing that's being bred out of people, and people are being trained not to think in terms of. Lately, I've been using the business model. If you work for a fucking business and you're fucking shit up, people are going to point out how you're fucking shit up and why you're fucking shit up. And if you continue to do that, you won't work for that business. Now, if you think in terms of you and I benefiting one another because it's a symbiotic system, if there are no checks and balances, things are going to get wildly out of hand, and that's exactly what we fucking see. That's why things are bad and why they're getting worse. It's not a mystery. But apparently people can't connect the fucking dots and see it for what it is. Because you and I are surrounded by people who are, by all rights, well below average and essentially fucking retards. They could change this because it's a temporary system. But most people aren't going to urge them to pull their heads out of their ass, which means they don't know that they have their heads up their ass and that they're fucking everything up for you and I alike. But what the fuck do I know?